Hussein. I play bass in Demonic Resurrection. I was friends with Sahil through some classes that we had joined in Dharmasthala, and he was in a band that time, and I kind of got influence from him, and he taught me the first guitar lesson and stuff. And from that, we forward. Influences in music mainly are it's a lot varied, but I prefer Floyd and stuff.
Again. I am Viru. I play the drums for Demonic Resurrection, and I started off playing drums when I was in college. Then I had
You need that?
No, he's already
I've
said
done
it, so,
it's the
yeah.
same thing.
Yeah, we'll do that later.
Okay.
I'm Daniel. I play lead guitar. I've been playing guitar since I was 9, so that's about 10 years now. And yeah, I joined Demonic Resurrection about mid last year when the previous lead guitar player left. And I auditioned and joined mid last year. Oh yeah. So, influences. It's varied as usual, but stuff like Meshuggah, Textures, Topsy, Nile, Necrophagist. Also, some jazz artists like Andrew Holdsworth, Pat Metheny, Scott Henderson. It's a mixed bag.
How did you become a musician?
Actually, my dad introduced me to music. He used to play the guitar. He still does actually, to some extent. And he bought me my first guitar. He enrolled me in my first guitar lessons. That's how I started with the guitar. And then I picked on from there.
I'm Kristo, I play keyboards. I started playing, actually learning Hindustani classical music when I was in first standard. And I did some singing lessons, and after that moved on to harmonium. Then, well, keyboard was a natural progression from there. Basically, I wanted to join a band when I was in college, and I was looking for a keyboard player. It's a long story, but basically it was an exchange of emails, meeting, auditioning, and then joining the band. I listened to a lot of Norwegian music, a lot of folk, and just started listening to some avant-garde music.
Hi, I'm the Demon Stealer. Wait, what's the question?
Influence. And when you
How
got
did
the
you start into like?
Wait, I'm very slow, so you have to ask me one question at a time.
Yeah. How did you get into music?
I have to look at you.
Yeah. Cool. How did you get into music? How did you become a musician?
Wait, it's not one question at a time. No.
Three things.
My answer is damn long.
How did you get introduced to music?
Yeah. Do I need to introduce myself again?
Nah.
Okay. I got into playing music after school basically. During school I got into metal, and after that I basically naturally wanted to form a band. So I formed Demonic Resurrection, fresh out of school. I tried to form it, but basically around my 12th standard is when the band actually took form. And I still don't consider myself a full-time musician because I have to keep my day job, but I guess the day I can quit my day job is when I can say I'm a full-time musician.
Your influences.
I'm influenced basically by all kinds of metal, except probably new metal. I listen to everything from power metal to black metal to death metal. So it's pretty varied. I do sometimes listen to alternative music, but I'm not particularly fond of any band enough to cite them as an influence.
How do you define your band, the style of music?
I think Demonic Resurrection is basically a mixture of different styles of metal. If you notice musically also, every time there are, everyone brings an element of theirs to the band's sound, and that is what defines the genre that Demonic Resurrection plays. And we obviously like to call it demonic metal.
So, tell us the story, so far. How has it been? Entire lineup and everything.
That's a long story.
Who formed it? Who founded it?
Founding members.
Okay, basically in 2000 is when Demonic Resurrection was born. I was joined by Aditya, Yash and Prashant, who are now in exhumation, and a keyboard player called Farhad. And basically Prashant left after the first show, and to make a long story short, there were a lot of lineup changes, and
Long
somewhere
story short.
I should have not read that Gita application so often. Anyway, to cut a long story short, somewhere down the line, the band lineup was Aditya, Yash, Nikita, and myself. That's the lineup that recorded the Demon Stealer album, which was released in 2001. After that, basically things didn't work out. Aditya and me had a falling out. Yash was disinterested. Nikita just didn't want to play anymore in the band. So the band sort of went basically almost split up. The last straw or that broke the camel's back was basically IROC 2002. We actually had Viru.
The band, did you just refer to the band as a camel?
Sorry.
No, if you join exhibition, then you become
Yeah.
yeah. Oh fuck!
Yeah, this is the band.
It's not bad. It's not bad. Not that yeah.
Broke the camel. Oh fuck! Stop
Dude, I have to stop reading the Gujarati application, man.
Turn it off.
Now wait.
You have tape, right?
Yeah, good.
Get it all.
Yeah, I hope so.
Last part.
Last part.
Last part.
Fresh life.
So basically, in 2002, when DR played IROC, the band pretty much fell apart. In fact, Viru had drummed for DR at that point of time, and Hussein had just about joined the band. So after that, we were basically, me and Hussein left in the band, and we were just searching for musicians when we came across, Mephisto, who sent us this really cheeky email, and so we met him and JP, and they somehow joined the band. And from there, it was a steady lineup for a while. I think around 2006, Pradeep got introduced into the lineup as a lead guitar player. And we had just released The Darkness Descent, so we were touring, playing shows. But then things didn't work out with JP, and he quit just before IROC in 2006. We had a few sessions drummers. Rahul from Bhayanak Moth filled in, Kishan from Extinct Reflections filled in. And finally, we went back to Viru because he was the only guy who could play our music properly. And then that was done, and in 2008, I think Pradeep again quit just before IROC. So we've had bad luck with people quitting before IROC. Hopefully this time no one will quit. And then Daniel joined us after IROC. I had anyway seen him jam in Fatados a couple of times, so I knew he was the guy to fill Pradeep's shoes. But literally he can't because he's about size 7 and Pradeep is about 10, I think.
How do you know that?
DR not workshop.
Pradeep
Yeah,
removed
not
his shoes
workshop.
here every time he came for jam.
Uh,
His big foot.
3 albums, sorry, 1 album and
Two
one,
albums.
Two albums.
yeah, 2 albums and 1 EP, and now the next album. So, what have been your lyrical influences on all throughout?
The first album was basically me. It was I would say a mishmash of things. It was some of my personal experiences that I wrote about. Some were just basically fantasy and fiction, power metal-ish influences. And the second album, Darkness Descends, is when we sort of got the whole darkness theme going on with the band, and it was basically about fiction and fantasy-based lyrics.
Can you explain that theme?
Yeah, I've always been heavily inspired by Lord of the Rings and that kind of imagery, and power metal was a big influence at that point of time. So stuff that Blind Guardian, Camelot, etc. write about demons, dragons, wars, warriors, etc. And that theme has sort of carried on after that as well. Because for the EP we sort of developed a story, taking off from where Darkness Descends left off, and we're continuing that with the next album. I think the fourth album will see some change in lyrical themes, but what it will be, I really can't say just yet.
We have a list of questions.
No, I was thinking something else. Most of the lyrics are written by you, or the band?
Yeah, the lyric writing is pretty much just me for the time being. Now Daniel is in the band. He has a degree or he will have a degree soon in literature. So I can always use him as a thesaurus when required.
What are your opinions on what happened?
That's a bad joke.
Very bad.
Should be more grim actually.
What are your opinions on lyrics based on religion, whether it is good or the other side?
You can answer that.
Yeah.
Why me?
Because you have the black metal leanings.
I don't care. I just listen to the music. I don't listen to music based on lyrics or based on theme or anything. If it's good, sounds good to me, I will listen.
But the message that they convey is
There's no message for me.
None of
I
us
don't
really do
really,
that
yeah,
kind of
none of
stuff,
us really.
or
I-
influence or anything.
Yeah, I think the message is secondary, music first. Obviously, I don't think anyone should approve of lyrics that talk about burning Jews and promoting Nazism or something to that extent. But I mean, it's just music at the end of the day, and you can just relate to it how you choose to.
you said that you are trained in Indian classical, right? And as an Indian classical musician as well, do you see that kind of influences coming in the music that you guys create?
Yeah, like most of my melodies have been mocked at because they sound Indian. So that kind of seeps into the music, which is fine. I think it's just what makes us unique.
Okay, you guys have been around since 2000. So, what do you think have been the changes in the scene over the years?
The scene has really developed. I mean, when I started out in 2000, it was practically just cover bands that ruled the metal scene. At least there were a few rock and roll bands that played one or two originals in their sets very apologetically. Even the metal bands, there was that time Scepter was completely playing Metallica, Megadeth. Naked Earth played everything from System of a Down to Fear
Nirvana.
Factory, even Nirvana, everything. And even bands like Metageeks were doing Pantera covers and Death covers. So that actually, I think, started changing over the years when all the bands started collectively saying, okay, we'll cut down on the covers. Our own music is more important, and that actually was the major change in the scene is when the audience finally came to a point where they knew that if you're going to see a particular band, you're going to hear their own music. If you don't like it, don't go for it. And then from there, the scene developed. Bands started recording, releasing albums, and frankly, this last 2 years we've had so many albums out by different bands. It's really great to see. Yeah.
Anyone else wants to add?
The only thing in terms of performance-wise, options of venues have really reduced, at least in Bombay, I guess. The whole scene probably shifted from Mumbai to Delhi now.
I think Bombay, in terms of metal, has always struggled because
Yeah.
we only had Raz,
Which is gone.
and now it's gone. I mean, there are the occasional shows at a party hall here and there, but the standard is not up to the mark. You pay for a ticket and the sound is bad, and the venue's got very bad ambience, and you just generally don't enjoy yourself. There's no air conditioning, no ventilation. You sweat like a pig. I think Viru might have some insight since he's also been active since 2000. on the
I
scene.
told you that.
Earlier it was about there was this fellowship kind of a thing where we used to compete. We used to do the competition rounds in Delhi, in Bangalore, in Chennai, wherever we used to go. So there were these bands, Sacred Semblance, Exhumation, Mind Snare, and us. We would be playing together, competing. There was this connection with the bands. There was a group formed. Now it's not there. Now we are more of playing at college festivals, so we don't get to see them, meet them, play with them more often. So that's kind of gone away now, except for the odd resurrection that happens twice or thrice a year.
Yeah.
That's
I think
the only festival we look forward to where we connect with all those guys.
Apart from this, what other problems do you see the current scene facing?
Getting out of India, I think.
Yeah, I think the standard problem is bands don't have the right studios to record. I mean, there's one great producer in India, Anupam Roy. After Anupam, there's hardly like a handful of people to choose from who you can record with, who understand the music. Venues is a constant problem. Then distribution. I mean, at one point there were no albums to distribute, so that distribution wasn't a problem. Today there are about 5 to 10 albums a year. So, now distribution of that becomes a problem. Doing shows becomes a problem. Sponsors. So, I mean, the problems are constantly going to be there for any developing scene and even for bands. Tomorrow, even if the metal scene is great here, a new band is always going to struggle and, try and find its footing in the metal scene.
Even before you got on stage, even as an audience member or as a musician, which Indian bands have you really looked up to and influenced you when you started? Okay, but
Daniel, chill.
Go on.
No.
Yeah, come on.
It's the same
Um,
set of questions that I answered.
Actually, common for all the bands.
Yeah, obviously.
yeah, I joined DR in, as I said, mid last year. So actually, before I joined DR, I was probably among their most rabid fans, I'd say. Yeah, rabid. I was a big fan. It's an expression. Yeah. I was pretty much a big fan of Demonic Resurrection, Exhumation. I liked Scribe quite a bit. Also, yeah, local bands like the three I just mentioned, Bionic Moth, Them Tones, the big bands at the time. Because that back then I wasn't in the circuit at all. I was just another kid out there moving about in the metal. Yeah, and then I got my break, so to speak.
I, in fact, Cryptos I used to look up to. I didn't really attend too many rock shows before I joined Demonic. In fact, my first rock show was, I think, Death Fest. The second one was iRock 2001 or 2 when DR opened. That's when Binu was playing drums for the band. So I was kind of impressed, even though the performance wasn't uh, something to write home about. I kind of liked DR then. So it was, I guess, not a dream, I would say, but I don't see myself playing in any other band.
So, why are you two so sad?
I'm just thinking which is the band. I think yeah. I mean, I saw Metakix live at Raz. I think I saw Scepter, but I mean, I don't think so. I really looked up to them or anything. So yeah, I don't think so. They really influenced me. But yeah, there were bands that I'd seen and the whole. I think Pentagram. Yeah, I think Pentagram I'd seen them.
I think for me it was basically when I started attending shows, it was Naked Earth, Morticide, and the first Death Fest when I saw Cryptos, Threnody, it was very impressive at that time, And I guess then after that we've just sort of been together with all these bands. We sort of joined this circle of bands. But yeah, recently I find bands like Inner Sanctum really really kick ass, and they're really I'm like wow, that's some great stuff there. Yeah.
Nothing else.
No, I think most of my influences were when I was younger were foreign bands, Cradle of Filth, Demu, Devin Townsend. I guess that's it. Yeah.
Okay. So, Death Fest. You guys played the first Death Fest, right?
Yeah.
So that was 2001?
2000 itself.
2000.
Yeah.
So can you tell us during those times how difficult was it to get a show and promote yourself as a metal band?
In fact, that time I feel it was a little easier to get a show because we had Raz, and Raz was very simple. Funda, come on a Thursday night. I mean, come a week or a month before, book your Thursday slot. Come and play on Raz Sound if you want. If you want to bring your own sound, bring it, and you get 50% of the gate, and you get $500 worth of food after the show.
And they used to have those small ads in midday.
And they used to put an ad in midday or Bombay Times, I think. Bombay Times every Thursday morning itself. So the scene was really good, and Raz was really kept the scene alive, And in those days, Livewire was also on a much larger scale. It was all night. RAIT was awesome. It was again, it wasn't on the quadrangle like it is now. It was in the open, in a huge field, 5,000 people. iRock was at Rang Bhavan. So if you're a metal band, you had a shot. Yeah, you had a venue. Even if you're the worst metal band, you could book Raz and play. There was no discrimination. And Deathfest also got a lot of support from Raz because Raz is a hotel come, venue. So they gave them the lawns, they gave the bands accommodation, and Deathfest happened actually on a big stage in the Raz lawns.
Fate also had a lot to do with bringing metal bands together, giving them that platform.
Wait, Fate the band or?
Yeah.
Fate band. No, Intune Entertainment they were called. I think it was Roshan, Hitesh and Nitin. Three of them were instrumental in having Deathfest every year. And that's sort of where we picked up inspiration for Resurrection from, where they left off Deathfest and there was nothing else, we took up Resurrection and we started that.
Okay. So tell us about Resurrection. Since you said it was, tell us the story so far with Resurrection.
Basically, Hussain and myself, after practice, we just realized that there's no shows, there's Deathfest is over and done with, it's not going to happen. So we said, let's start something and let's try and do shows regularly, not just Resurrection, but shows in general. And the first show, obviously, that we were going to do was going to be like a full extreme metal fest. So it was just natural to come up with a name for the festival, and and that's how the first Resurrection came about.
This was?
This was in 2004. Also, DR had just sort of
Got in the lineup.
got in the new lineup. We had spent almost a year writing the songs, and we needed a platform to perform, and there was no better place than Raz and a Resurrection like show. So that's how Resurrection came about.
During those times, apart from Resurrection and Marine Center, there was no other venue.
There was no Marine Center in the beginning.
Okay.
Marine Center actually developed when Raz
Because
shut
Raz-
down. Yeah.
Okay, 2006.
Yeah, so the Rustbots, no, 2005. Because Resurrection, I think 3 was the last one that happened there at Raz, after which it shut. And I think Rustbot and Sunny and all these guys got together in Vashi, and they said, since we are from Vashi, let's look for a venue here. And so even Resurrection 4 happened at Marine Center. That's when DR launched Darkness Descends.
What's the scene with Rag? Like, why did it shut down? And what are
Not profitable, management changes, different. At some point the management changed. They said, why are we wasting the space? They had a bad reputation of, being a sleazy joint. I've actually had sponsors say, no, we won't sponsor if you're doing it in Raz. So I guess it was just natural for the place to shut down. It's basically a party hall now.
you have to ask? So, a very less question. The whole point of a band, like, is what I have understood from talking to so many musicians, is to evolve as a musician. And DR has been evolving as well. As I'm listening to the music. What are your opinions on bands who are stagnant on the same music for so long?
To each his own, yeah. If that's what they want to do, that's what they're comfortable with. See, ultimately, it's about producing music that you like. If you are in a band, you're gonna stay in a band only if you like what you're doing. So it's about what they want to do. We definitely want to move forward, which is what we're doing.
Yeah, I think everyone wants to play a certain style or a genre of music. That's one kind of band that chooses to write its music, and it wants to challenge itself every time. Frankly, even if you look at a band like Cannibal Corpse, if you look at it as an outsider, if you're not listening to death metal specifically, you don't really see an evolution. It's the same sound from one album to another. It may be better produced, different songs, different riffs, more technical. As an outsider, it's one-dimensional. So it's all perspective here. And if you're referring specifically to bands that play covers or whatever, I guess you got to play what makes you happy. Certain bands are happier just playing a regular cover set, playing tribute to their idols and doing a good job at that, than writing shitty original music. So you deal with the audience reaction as it goes along. So obviously cover bands etc. will choose not to play at a festival that they may not be appreciated. They'd rather play a hard rock or a jazz, and that is becoming more evident now. Earlier we all were stuck at playing the same place. Now if you're a cover band or a classic rock band or whatever, you can play at a hard rock, jazz, whatever. If you're a metal band, you play at the metal shows. You're not stuck at one place. The only place they get together is competitions.
As a band, you guys have also played a lot of cities in the country. Jalandhar, Indore, this, which is like not known for having shows. What are your perspective of the audience? Like, how different are the audience in each city?
The thing, what we thought was that there won't be that many fans and stuff, but it's pretty huge, the scenes out there also. Like, they haven't seen rock shows as much as we've seen in Bombay and Delhi, so they die for one show that's happening. Like, if there's a DRB happening in Indore, they really went for that. And so it's nice, as in you'll find probably 110 metalheads, but the 90 non-metalheads also, they're there for the metal, for the music, and they appreciate the band, whatever we're playing. Maybe they don't get it, they don't understand it, but they're there for it. Like, whatever happening, they want to be part of it. So it's pretty cool playing. You won't find 100% metalheads any of the towns, that's pretty much sure, in India at least for some time. But whatever you get, I think it's great.
But also the metropolitan cities, like, how Delhi is different from the audience.
Yeah, I guess every city has its characteristic, as you can put it.
Characteristics.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to
Characteristics. He actually thought of me, let's drop it. I fucking carry that.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah,
every city has its own charm. Did I say it correctly now?
Chim.
Charm.
Licht-right.
Every city has its own
Yes,
charm, basically. I mean, Bangalore used to always be more of guys who are more, they just stand and they listen to the music, and that's how they enjoy it.
Except for Nolan would be out there headbanging
Yeah.
front row.
And Bombay is more just like mosh, whether it's fucking Zero or Demonic Resurrection. You just have to throw bodies across the place.
Delhi is also extremely receptive.
Yeah. Delhi is just they're involved, man. You tell them to put their arms up in the air, their arms up in the air. You tell them to fucking mosh, they mosh. So it's cool, yeah. I mean, in all the other places also, it's just people go ballistic, yeah. Right? Especially the smaller cities, we realized. I think in Indore, in Jalandhar, in Dhanbad, like Hussein said, not all of the crowd is obviously going to be true elite metalheads who know everything about your band, but they go wild. Like it's. I mean, they may not mosh the proper way, but they have a good time, and you feed off that energy from the crowd. So they're very energetic. It's good fun playing in these places.
Share some experience.
Guwahati is always a good story to talk about.
What happened in Guwahati?
Even Jalandhar, the chicks was split in one side and
No, that was not Jalandhar.
the Dhanbad, no, that was Jalandhar, yeah,
Dhanbad, no.
that was Jalandhar. Where the
I
chicks
think
were on one
Jalandhar.
side, yeah,
Jalandhar.
all the women were on one side and they had the oldies in between and all the fans on this side. I mean the guy fans on this side and
People seated in the
yeah,
audience.
seated in the audience.
Not in Jalandhar. It
Yeah.
was an open air theater. They were all in front standing. There was a barricade, but yeah, I think they were all freely moving around. Dude.
No, there were women on the side. I was that side, that's why I remember.
I think that was one of the Guwahati shows. actually.
I think
Our last gig we did, the governor attended the show. He inaugurated it. We got felicitated on stage. It was nice. I don't know. It's a different show from what we are used to playing. The crowd was different. Obviously there were metalheads in the crowd, but there was another section of the audience which was there from the charity, which was what we were playing for. And they sat through the show. They sat and clapped, but whatever. They enjoyed.
I think the weirdest was actually in Gujarat at Anand.
Yeah.
Because like there the whole show was a mess. They had a ring around the stage where you couldn't cross because the judges' chairs were there. And I think there must have been about 3% of metalheads in that show. So they were on the side headbanging of the stage, and when they tried to come in front, the security would beat them up and move them to the side. But the rest of the audience were like, Atur kare che,
Hello, hello.
atlu loud che, the Falguni na pets ne. I mean,
No, it was a fantastic experience. playing
yeah, it was an
Gujarat.
experience,
Yeah.
really an experience. Playing on Ganesh sound system. What is this? What is this sound system? But it was a really bad stuff. But it was an experience. As a band, you go through this. I mean, there are bands that have gone through far worse. But yeah, everywhere the crowd is different, and this is, one like where you see a non-receptive audience.
From all over the years, even as an audience or as a band member, can you tell us something which you will never forget from the Indian scene?
You want to play Dynamite?
No, it's a Canada.
I think I really enjoy. I think we as a band really enjoy playing in the Northeast. From all the Guwahati shows we've had so far, they've all been really awesome. I think something that would stick in my mind for a long time would be both the Guwahati shows we played this year. In fact, it was supposed to be 3, but then one of them got cancelled at the last minute because of rains and stuff. I think something that strikes anyone who attends a show or performs in cities like this is that you realize how much more passionate, how much they put into their music, and it's not just something you come to do and listen. Like, I mean, at shows like this, you realize how much more dedication is there towards the music. So after the show, you'll have people who really seem to be really into their music, really thrilled to actually watch a band play. As in, you see a lot more enthusiasm in some of the, especially in the Northeast and even in some of the smaller cities we played this year, in fact. And I guess the last show we played in Guwahati, where we were called down for a cancer charity 8K. I think that's something I remember for a long time, because we had the governor up on the front seat. We had members of the charity association around. We were felicitated with a lot of pomp and splendor. It was a very memorable thing. It wasn't something we were used to. Definitely not being called on stage by name and having garlands put around us. Definitely not
It
something.
was not a garland, it was a traditional
Assamese
garment.
garment. Oh yeah, sorry.
Cloth.
Garment.
Cloth.
Garment and a bouquet. Yeah. So it's not something we're used to traditionally at all. something that will stick in my mind.
What was the question?
Even as an audience member or as a band member, something that you will never forget from the scene that you have seen.
Something I'll never forget is 2001 IROC Sahil saying, "Come on, Bombay, give me some attitude."
It was 2002,
2002.
and I never said that.
What about the
I will
Jalandhar
never
one?
forget
It
this.
was 2002, and I
What
never
about
said that.
Bombay, show me some attitude.
What about the Jalandhar one of the wrong city?
I never said that.
Just going to Paris,
Because-
कैसा बोल दिया?
I'll never forget it.
I think as an audience member, for me, in '99, when I saw Cryptos and Morticide at IIT Bombay, that is something I will never forget. That was like Nolan. I remember he broke his guitar string and he played the Seek and Destroy riff from half the midway through the song right till the end because he couldn't play any other notes. And Morticide just put up an insane performance. Also some of Naked Earth's performances when I was just a little kid was really awesome and very inspiring. As an audience, I'll never forget my friend Aditya Udas climbing on the IROC stage and stealing Brahma's water bottle. That was insane. And Brahma saying this is the first Indian black metal song and playing 3 chords and followed by a Metallica-like song. I won't forget these moments. Priceless. And as I guess as a band, GIR 2005, that was the first year we made it. And I said, Delhi, let me see your hands in the air. And 7,000 people there put their hands in the air. That was something I can't describe even. Of course, Mephisto's stone on the head in IROC 2004 and stuck in the keyboard. I mean, we have a lot of
Good stories.
good stories, bad stories. I mean,
The bad story also. See about the
That
bad
was the
story.
first, the second IROC actually.
The second IROC that this was, I guess this is the first with the DR lineup updated, with JP, Mephisto, and Hussein. And I think IROC, it was still the time when people were into the whole cover thing, and IROC audience was a lot more violent and unruly at that point.
Violent.
It also, there was a problem with the PA sound. So while everything was fine on stage, something went wrong off it. So the PA sound was messy or too, I don't know what. The crowd basically got violent and started throwing stuff at us. But we didn't stop, obviously, we kept playing. So everyone got hit basically.
You got hit by a stone.
Everyone got hit. by
Everyone
something.
was.
As in all the bands, not everyone. we could all move because we had guitars, but poor Mephisto was stuck with the keyboard. Couldn't really run away from the stones.
I think even Zulfi's gig is pretty. This fan in Guwahati, two brothers Zulfi and Ifti, they did a show this year for us, which got canned because of the rains. That was pretty kick-ass because I was speaking to them, I'm working on the gig with them, and they would call me every day ensuring that everything would be done, and they had worked really hard. And we thought there were sponsors and all doing the gig, and when we reached there, he told us that he borrowed money from his dad because his dad was like, "Agar bajan hai to just do a rock show for yourself. Why don't you just do it?" And his father gave him the money, and it was very well organized and stuff. But some minor stuff because they were doing the show for the first time, they forgot to finish the entire production of the gig in terms of stage, and also they kind of lost out there. So it started raining, and so that gig was pretty memorable for us because we really wanted to do something for them and perform. And they came up. In fact, they paid us, and everything was perfect. But the gig just didn't happen that day. So something was wrong. But I think that was pretty memorable for as a fan doing a show for us. It was fantastic.
Oh yeah, this is
I told
Yeah,
you.
with this you can answer. With
Yeah, you can answer.
This
I
is
think
a
one
question for you.
experience
Yeah.
I would share is when we had to travel from Bombay to Calcutta, Calcutta to Jalandhar. No,
Bombay to
Dhanbad,
Calcutta.
Dhanbad, from Dhanbad again back to Calcutta, from Calcutta to Delhi, from Delhi to Jalandhar,
Jalandhar,
back
Delhi.
to Delhi, and then Bombay in 2 days. And I am a person who hates traveling, and I had to do that for the band. I would never do that again, never. But it was an experience, yeah.
This was beautiful because you were part of Throat Latch,
Yeah.
which was one of the first, official kind of record label here. in the country. So, can you, tell us about your days over there, and you also, because after that you have started your studio.
I actually joined Midway, where Ranjan, who was the owner of Throat Latch, he had released bands like Metacakes, and he had a metal compilation called Deep Throat, and he had other plans. Plus, there were bands like Cryptic from Bangalore and Cyanide Angels. Cyanide
Yes,
Angels from Calcutta, who were recording at that time. But then there were some issues, like personal issues of Ranjan, that he had to leave for UK. But the time when I was working with Throat Latch is when I used to record some of the bands like Tripwire and all those guys, and I had also recorded Metakicks. I had recorded Amidst the Chaos, even Metakicks' second album demo I had recorded. But I don't know, I was not involved in the whole marketing and promotional.
The whole point of this question was because we have like old CDs and everything. Everything's been recorded over there. So like a lot of bands have been recorded there. That's why I'm asking you that. DR also did it.
Yeah, I actually started recording a little before Throat Latch came about. I used to record at home. The first DR album was done here before Throat Latch came out. And Throat Latch, I guess, was Ranjan's initiative to try and do a studio come a record label thing. But I don't think that really worked out well for him. They released Deep Throat compilation. The compilation, again, the marketing something went wrong. The CDs didn't sell. I have over the last 6 years given out free Deep Throat CDs and cassettes, like constantly. But they did a lot of work. They laid a lot of foundation for something, and they recorded all the bands. So it was an experience for the bands. We all got a lot of studio experience that we didn't have, previously. So I think when Deep Throat was out, there was Cryptos, Kinky Ski Monkeys, Demonic Resurrection, lots of bands, Cranium, and we all went and recorded there. In fact, even PDB was supposed to do an album there, but I think something didn't work out for them, and they finally did it elsewhere. But yeah, that was. Then I guess Ranjan realized that it was not, making the kind of money he needed to, whatever, survive. So he went back to his job, I think, in the UK.
You have also played with a lot of other bands. When you just mentioned Kinky Ski Monkeys,
I actually have not played with that many other bands. I've all played with bands I started.
Okay.
Except for Kinky Ski Monkeys.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think before iRock in 2001, I think, when Kinky Ski Monkeys had gotten selected, I think they had some issues with P-Man at that point, who was playing bass for them, and basically he was not going to play iRock with them, he was going to play with PDB. So I think I was recording the demo at that time at my studio here. And they just casually said, why don't you play bass or whatever. So I was like, okay, man, cool. In fact, I'm not sure, but I think I recorded bass on the demo also. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, so I started jamming with them a few times, and I played iRock with them. After that, I did one show with them in IIT Delhi, and then I was back to DR. They found a better bass player then.
What about your solo stuff?
See, over the years, basically, DR's absence has caused me to play in other bands more than anything else. It was 2002, just when DR had sort of not really gotten its stuff together. I think 2001, and I wanted to go to NLS really badly because that was an awesome festival. And in 2000, DR went and played. Then we really, really enjoyed ourselves. So DR couldn't go one year, so I said, dude, I was teaching Hussain guitar at that time. So I said, dude, since your skill level is okay right now, you come and play bass. And I had another friend, JV, so I said, come and play guitar. We did 2 DR covers, and I wrote 2 more songs, and we went and played in Bangalore. What was it called? Reptilian Death.
Oh.
I think another year after that, again, DR had some issue. I think Hussain had exist. Something was not happening, and or you came.
Did we form something with Vineet also?
Yeah, with Vineet from Zenin, we played this band called Raven Dark. Again, because DR wasn't able to go, just got a lineup together, jammed, and went to NLS. And all the other stuff that I do is generally been solo projects which have been released online. Nothing that plays live.
You guys played in a lot of bands.
Yeah, Viru actually is the guy who's jumped many bands.
That whole description I gave.
That's nothing. Like, would you like to take your solo stuff live? Reptilian Death has played live.
Reptilian Death, I still want to play live with simply because I get to play the drums. That's a difference. But all the other stuff, I don't really care. As long as DR is playing regularly, I'm more than happy.
How do you think will the scene, progress in the next coming years?
I hope that somebody invests in my idea of the Black Frog, and there's a there's a and there's a venue for metal bands. Because there's a place in Bangalore now called Kyra, which is like a Raz. The only thing is, it's not only metal; it allows any kind of band. So if some more venues like that are open to bands, then I guess that will be a good, a big help actually. And I definitely, with new companies coming up like Grey and Saurian, and more producers also. There's Arun from Devoid who's doing some stuff. There's Ayan from Goddess Gagged. There's Keshav Dhar in Delhi. So a lot of producers are also, coming up in the scene. And generally, everything's it's following a natural, evolution. And I think the scene should be good in another 20 years' time. I think. I'm talking like on par with international standards.
Also, GIR and actually GIR more than anyone else has brought down international acts, Norwegian acts, which we would have never imagined 2 years ago. It also exposes them to our music. Those bands realize that there are metal acts in India. Exposes us over there. Maybe something might work out there. Band from here might go there. That kind of.
Yeah, I think promoters have discovered that there's always been a big audience for metal, and they are tapping into that now. GIR has been doing it for a long time. You know that they've done their homework. But like a DNA now has just gone crazy with the metal stuff, man. From bringing, they've done Beyonce and Shaggy and all with 5,000 people, and they invest crores in that, and there's no audience. But you do an Iron Maiden, you have 20,000-30,000 people. You did a Megadeth, you had, I don't know how many, but it was quite a bit. So they are also tapping into these, into this. And I guess a lot of other organizers are also going to follow soon.
So what are the future plans for DR?
Third album. Hopefully in November as planned. Maybe tour abroad next year. We have Hussein who's handling the band management now, and he's constantly looking to get DR to tour abroad, coordinating with festivals and things like that. And I guess then constantly write more music. Do a third album, fourth album, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, how many ever, till the day we die.
Ending.